Welcome back to my channel. Today, we explore the value of specific coins, the top 6 Monticello Jefferson nickel 5-cent coins, value in today's market in dollar. So, let's get started. First up, the 1995 P. Monticello Jefferson nickel, but not just any 1995 nickel, the valuable one, in good condition. How much is it worth today? Stick around to find out. First, let's take a closer look at the coin itself. The 1995 P. Jefferson nickel is part of the famous Monticello series, which has been in circulation since 1938. The 1995 version, like others, features Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and Monticello, Jefferson's historic home, on the reverse. But here's the kicker. If you have one in good condition, it could be worth more than you think. Now, let's talk about condition. The value of a coin depends largely on its grade. For a nickel to be considered in good condition, it typically shows noticeable wear, but the details are still recognizable. In fact, most 1995p nickels you'll find are in this range. But, even in this state, it might have a surprising value. Even in good condition, a 1995 P. Monticello Jefferson nickel is worth more than its face value of 5 cents. How much more? Well, in today's market, if your coin is in good condition, it's generally worth around 15 to 25 cents. That's right, 15 to 25 cents may not sound like a huge windfall, but considering it's still circulating, it's a nice little bonus if you happen to have one. But remember, the value can shift depending on where it's from and its overall condition. The P mint mark indicates it was minted in Philadelphia. The 1995 P is often seen in circulation, but if you come across one that's in extra fine or uncirculated condition, it could be worth a few dollars more. That's the key. Coins that are less worn and kept in good shape will always fetch a higher price. Now, the 1995 P. Monticello Jefferson nickel isn't the most valuable nickel out there. Coins like the 1939D or 1950D Jefferson nickels are much rarer and more valuable. But as always, condition is key. If you happen to have a pristine, uncirculated example of the 1995P, you could see values approaching $1 or more. So to wrap things up, if you find a 1995 P. Monticello Jefferson nickel in good condition, it's worth about 15 to 25 cents today. But keep an eye out for higher grade coins. Those could bring in more. Always remember, when it comes to coin collecting, the more you learn about your coins, the better your chances of finding a hidden gem. Next up, the 2007 D. Monticello Jefferson nickel. But not just any 2007 nickel, we're talking about the one with the D mint mark in extra fine condition. If you've come across one of these, you might be wondering what it's worth in today's market. Let's take a closer look. Alright, let's start by talking about the coin itself. The 2007 Jefferson nickel is part of the Monticello series, and just like the other years in this series, it features Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and his iconic home, Monticello, on the reverse. This specific coin was minted in Denver, as indicated by the D mint mark right next to Monticello. Now, the condition of the coin plays a huge role in its value, and this is where the extra fine grade comes into play. But what does extra fine mean exactly? An extra fine coin typically shows light wear, but all of the details are sharp and well defined. For the 2070 nickel, that means you can still clearly see Monticello's details and Jefferson's facial features with minimal signs of wear. It's in much better shape than coins in lower grades, like good or fine. In terms of value, this is where things get interesting. The 2007 D. Jefferson nickel in extra fine condition is worth significantly more than its face value of just 5 cents. In today's market, a 2007 D. Monticello Jefferson nickel in extra fine condition is valued at about 20 to 30 cents. While that may not seem like a huge sum, it's still a solid increase over the face value, especially considering these coins are relatively easy to find in circulation. Of course, the value can fluctuate slightly depending on demand and the specific condition of your coin. Coins that are more pristine or those with rare characteristics might fetch a bit more. But in general, if you have one of these in extra fine condition, you're looking at about a quarter per coin. Now, let's talk about why this coin might be of interest to collectors. The 2007 D. Monticello Jefferson nickel isn't necessarily rare, but it is part of a collectible series. Plus, as coins continue to age, their value can increase, especially if they're well preserved. While there are more valuable nickels out there, like the 1950D or 1939D, the 2007D can still be a nice addition to a collection, especially if you're into modern-era US coins. If you're new to collecting, this might be one of those coins you can easily find in your pocket change, and if it's in great condition, it could be worth more than you expect. So, to sum up, a 2007 D. Monticello Jefferson nickel in extra fine condition is generally worth A 2007 D. Monticello Jefferson nickel in extra fine condition is generally worth around 20 to 30 cents in today's market. Not bad for a coin that's still circulating. Keep an eye out for these in your change and make sure to check their condition before tossing them into your jar. Next up, the 1943 Monticello Jefferson nickel with the S mint mark and in dirty condition. Stick around to find out how much this coin is worth in today's market. First, let's quickly review the basics. The 1943 Jefferson nickel was minted during World War II, and it's unique for a few reasons. It was made out of 35% silver due to wartime metal shortages, which gives it a bit of a different composition than other nickels. On the front, you've got the classic portrait of Thomas Jefferson, and on the reverse, you see Monticello, Jefferson's Virginia home. The S mint mark tells us it was minted in San Francisco, and that's key to its value. Now here's the catch. When it comes to coins, condition matters a lot. A coin in mint or near mint condition can fetch much higher prices than one that's been heavily circulated, or, in this case, one that's in dirty condition. Even though this 1943 Jefferson nickel may have seen better days, it still has some value because of its rarity. Dirty or worn-down coins don't always go for top dollar, but they're far from worthless. So, how much is a 1943 S Monticello nickel worth today? Well, in typical circulated condition with some dirt and wear, you're probably looking at around $2 to $5. Not bad for a coin that's almost 80 years old. However, here's where it gets interesting. If the coin is in better condition, say fine or very fine, you could see values rise significantly, possibly up to $10 to $15. And for coins in excellent condition or with unique characteristics, prices can go much higher, sometimes even in the $50, $100 range. If your 1943 nickel has significant wear or dirt, don't worry. That doesn't mean it's worthless. But if you've got one in decent shape, it's always worth having it professionally graded. A professional grader can assess its true value based on its condition, and that could increase its price in the market. Remember, the rarity of the S mint mark can also add value, especially if the coin is harder to find. So, even a dirty 1943 Monticello Jefferson nickel with an S mint mark still has some solid value in today's market. ranging from a couple bucks to more depending on its condition. If you have one lying around, it's definitely worth taking a second look. Next up, the 1965 Monticello Jefferson nickel, specifically one without a mint mark and in a black color shade condition. Stick around to find out how much this coin is worth in today's market. Let's start with a quick overview. The 1965 Jefferson nickel is part of the classic series featuring the portrait of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and Monticello, his Virginia home, on the reverse. It's important to note that the 1965 nickel is one of the last years of the coin being struck in the traditional nickel composition before some later changes. One thing to remember, this coin doesn't have a mint mark, which means it was minted in Philadelphia. Unlike other years where a mint mark shows the minting location, 1965 was the last year where many coins were made without this mark. The black color or darker tone is usually caused by environmental factors like oxidation, tarnish, or even dirt buildup over time. It's not a minting error or a special feature, but rather the result of exposure to certain conditions that affect how the coin ages. Coins that develop this dark or black appearance may be considered toned, but this doesn't always make them more valuable. So, how much is a 1965 Jefferson nickel without a mint mark, in black color shade condition, worth today? Well, in its typical circulated condition, even with the darkened appearance, you're looking at about 10 to 50 cents. The black color doesn't necessarily add value unless it's a unique, collectible tone that someone finds aesthetically pleasing. Now, if your coin is in great shape despite the black color, and you can see some of the original detail, the value might be closer to the higher end of that range. But let's be clear, this isn't going to turn into a high-value coin just because of its black hue. However, there are certain cases where a black-toned 1965 nickel could be worth more than average. If your coin has rare or interesting toning patterns, like a rainbow effect or unique color gradients, that could catch the eye of collectors who appreciate toned coins. In these cases, you might see the value rise to $5 to $10 more, depending on the collector demand for toned coins. But remember, these types of coins are not common, and unless the toning is extremely striking, most blackened coins won't fetch much more than face value or a little above. So, if you've got a 1965 Jefferson nickel in black shade condition, it's likely worth somewhere between 10 cents to $1, with a few exceptions depending on the unique nature of the toning. If you think your coin has more to it than meets the eye, it's always worth checking with a professional coin dealer or getting it graded. Make sure to keep an eye out for rare toning patterns, as they could make your nickel more valuable than expected. More, depending on the collector demand for toned coins. But remember, these types of coins are not common, and unless the toning is extremely striking, most blackened coins won't fetch much more than face value or a little above. So, if you've got a 1965 Jefferson nickel in black shade condition, it's likely worth somewhere between 10 cents to $1, with a few exceptions depending on the unique nature of the toning. If you think your coin has more to it than meets the eye, it's always worth checking with a professional coin dealer or getting it graded. Make sure to keep an eye out for rare toning patterns, as they could make your nickel more valuable than expected. Next up, the 1981 Monticello Jefferson nickel with a P mint mark in fine condition. Stick around to learn what it's worth in today's market and why it could be more valuable than you think. First, let's take a quick look at the 1981 Jefferson nickel. This coin features Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and Monticello, his Virginia home, on the reverse. just like the classic design that has been used since the 1930s. What makes this coin unique is the P mint mark on the reverse, indicating it was minted in Philadelphia. This was actually the first year the P mint mark appeared on regular issue circulating coins, which makes it an interesting piece for collectors. Now, let's talk about the condition. When we say fine condition, we're referring to a coin that has noticeable wear but still retains a fair amount of detail. On a 1981 Jefferson nickel in fine condition, you'll likely see a little bit of flatness on the high points of the design, like Jefferson's cheek and the Monticello building. But the details will still be clear enough to identify the coin and appreciate its features. Fine coins may show some scratches or discoloration, but there's still a big step up from heavily worn or corroded coins. So, what's the value of a 1981 Monticello Jefferson nickel with the P mint mark in fine condition? In today's market, you can typically expect to see it priced around 25 to 50 cents. It's not a rare coin, and because it's from a more recent minting year, its value isn't going to skyrocket unless it has some unique features. However, don't be disappointed by the lower value range. The 1981 P nickel is part of a broader set of coins from the early 1980s that collectors keep an eye on, especially if they are well preserved or part of a complete set. For example, if your 1981 P nickel is in better than fine condition, say very fine or even AU, almost uncirculated, it could be worth a few dollars, maybe even up to $5. But it's also worth noting that if your coin has a unique error, like a doubled die or unusual strike, that could greatly increase its value. Rare errors on nickels from the 1980s are often of interest to collectors. So, if you've got a 1981 Jefferson nickel with the P mint mark in fine condition, it's probably worth around 25 to 50 cents. But keep an eye out for any unique features that could make your coin more valuable, like errors or higher grades. If you think your coin is in better condition or has a rare feature, it might be worth having it graded by a professional. Next up, the 1942 Monticello Jefferson nickel with a P mint mark, specifically one in black color shade condition. Stick around to find out how much this unique coin could be worth in today's market. Let's start with a quick overview of the 1942 Jefferson nickel. This coin features the iconic portrait of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and Monticello, Jefferson's Virginia home, on the reverse. But the 1942 nickel is particularly interesting because of the transition in metal composition during World War II. In 1942, the US government began using silver in the nickel's composition due to wartime needs for nickel. The regular Jefferson nickel was 75% copper and 25% nickel, but the 1942 version was made with 56% copper, 35% silver, and 9% manganese. This makes the 1942 nickel somewhat special. And if your coin has the P mint mark, that means it was minted in Philadelphia, which is key for collectors. Now, let's talk about the black color shade condition. This isn't a minting error or a rare variety. It's simply a coin that has developed dark toning or tarnish over time due to exposure to environmental factors. The black shade is often caused by factors like oxidation, dirt accumulation, or storage in less than ideal conditions. While the black color might make it look different from a typical shiny nickel, this doesn't necessarily add or subtract much value in itself. However, it does make the coin more unique, and some collectors really appreciate coins with interesting or unusual toning. In general, if the coin is in blackened condition, but still in reasonable shape, you're looking at a value of around 50 cents to $1. This is typical for coins that show heavy tarnish or have a black shade but don't feature any rare errors or unique attributes. Even though the black toning doesn't add a ton of value on its own, a 1942p nickel can still be a decent find, especially for casual collectors or those building sets. But here's where it gets interesting. If your 1942p nickel with the black color shade condition has clearer detail of a rare rainbow effect or creates some unusual patterns on the coin, collectors who specialize in toned coins might pay a premium for it. In these cases, the coin could be worth up to $5 to $10 or even more if it's in exceptional condition despite the toning. Additionally, if the coin has any rare minting errors or was stored in a way that preserved more of its original detail despite the toning, that could further increase its value. So, in short, a 1942 Monticello Jefferson nickel with a P mint mark in black color shade condition is likely worth between 50 cents and $1 in typical circulated condition. However, if your coin has unusual toning or is in better condition than most, it could potentially be worth more. If you think your coin has something special, it might be worth getting it professionally graded or appraised to find out its true value. Next up, the 1954 Monticello Jefferson nickel without a mint mark in extra dirty condition. If you've got one of these lying around, stick around to find out how much it's worth in today's market. First, let's take a quick look at the 1954 Jefferson nickel. This coin features the famous portrait of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and Monticello, Jefferson's Virginia home, on the reverse. It's part of the ongoing series that has been in circulation since the 1930s, but the 1954 nickel holds some significance for collectors. The 1954 nickel was minted in large numbers, so it's not considered rare. However, there is something special about how the coin was minted and its place in the overall nickel series. The no mint mark version means it was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, which is the key detail for identifying this coin. Now, let's talk about that extra dirty condition. You've probably seen coins like this before. Heavily tarnished, covered in dirt or grime, and with most of the original shine completely worn away. This kind of dirt or grime can build up from years of handling or storage, leaving the coin looking far from pristine. While these coins don't have any rare features or minting errors, they can still hold some value, even in this condition. So, how much is a 1954 Jefferson nickel without a mint mark in extra dirty condition worth today? In most cases, this type of coin would be valued at just 5 to 10 cents, basically close to its face value, which is $0.25. Coins in extra dirty condition typically don't see a big bump in value unless they have some other unique features like a rare error or a very high level of preservation despite the dirt. So, while your 1954 nickel may have a lot of character, it's not going to fetch a significant price unless it's in better shape. But here's the thing. If your coin is in extra dirty condition, but has been well preserved underneath the dirt, it might still have potential. If the coin is cleaned or the dirt can be removed without damaging the surface, you may be able to bring out the original details, which could raise its value slightly. Keep in mind that cleaning coins can be risky for collectors. If you clean a coin improperly, you could damage it, which would lower its value. It's often best to leave coins in their natural state, unless you know exactly what you're doing. Also, if your 1954 nickel happens to have some sort of rare error, like a doubled die or misstruck features, it could be worth more. Even if it's a bit dirty, these types of errors are what truly drive up the value for seemingly ordinary coins. So, in summary, if you have a 1954 Monticello Jefferson nickel in extra dirty condition, don't expect it to be worth much, probably around 5 to 10 cents. But keep in mind that if the coin is in better condition than it appears or has a rare feature, its value could rise. If you're unsure whether your coin has something special, it might be worth getting it checked out by a professional coin dealer or even a grading service. Next up, the 2000 Monticello Jefferson nickel with a D mint mark in extra fine condition. If you've got one of these in your collection, stay tuned to find out what it's worth in today's market. Let's start with the basics. The 2000 Jefferson nickel is part of the ongoing Monticello series, which has featured Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and his famous home, Monticello, on the reverse since the 1930s. This particular coin features the D mint mark, indicating it was struck at the Denver Mint. Unlike earlier years, where the design was more traditional, the 2000 nickel was part of a special initiative to redesign the reverse, showcasing an updated depiction of Monticello. It was one of the last coins in the series to feature this design before the reverse was modified again in 2004. Now let's talk about the coin's condition extra fine. When we say extra fine, we're talking about a coin that has been lightly circulated but still retains almost all of its detail. An extra fine coin will show some wear, especially on the high points like Jefferson's hair or the roof of Monticello, but the design will still be sharp and easily recognizable. The wear is noticeable, but not to the point where it significantly detracts from the coin's overall look. In fact, extra fine coins are often considered to be some of the best examples of a circulating coin. So, how much is a 2000 Jefferson nickel with a D mint mark worth in extra fine condition today? In the current market, you can typically expect it to be worth around 25 to 50 cents. While this is a relatively modern coin, it's still in good demand among collectors, especially for those working on completing full sets of Jefferson nickels. The 2000 D nickel is not considered rare, but its well-preserved condition means it can fetch a slightly higher value than a more worn coin. So, could this coin be worth more than 50 cents? Absolutely. If your 2000 D nickel is in better than extra fine condition, like almost uncirculated AU, or has a special feature like an error, it could be worth significantly more. For example, a coin that's in mint state or has a unique strike could sell for several dollars. Coins with minting errors, such as double dies or off-center strikes, could push the value up even more. In fact, if you found a 2000 D nickel with a rare error, it could be worth $10 to $20 or more. So in summary, a 2000 Monticello Jefferson nickel with the D mint mark in extra fine condition is typically worth between 25 and 50 cents in today's market. It's a solid find, especially if you're a collector, but it's not a coin that's going to break the bank unless it's in better condition or has a rare feature. If you think your 2000 D nickel is in exceptional condition or has an error, it might be worth having it graded by a professional to get an accurate value. Next up, the 1964 Monticello Jefferson nickel without a mint mark in good condition. Stay tuned to find out how much this classic coin is worth in today's market. Let's start with a quick overview of the 1964 Jefferson nickel. This coin features the well-known portrait of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and Monticello, his Virginia home, on the reverse. The 1964 nickel is part of the long-running series of Jefferson nickels, which has been in circulation since the 1930s. In 1964, the design was still largely unchanged from its original release, except for the transition to using more nickel and copper in the coin's composition. The key thing about this 1964 nickel is that it's part of a larger batch struck at the Philadelphia Mint, meaning it does not have a mint mark. Now, let's talk about what good condition means for this coin. In numismatics, good condition is often considered the point where a coin has visible wear but is still legible and recognizable. The details on a coin in good condition will be worn down, especially on the high points, like Jefferson's cheek and Monticello's roof, but the overall design will still be distinct. A good grade usually indicates that the coin has been in circulation for a while and shows signs of use, such as scratches, dents, or discoloration, but the main features are still easy to identify. So, how much is a 1964 Monticello Jefferson nickel without a mint mark in good condition worth today? Well, in the current market, it typically ranges from 5 to 10 cents. Even though the 1964 nickel is over 50 years old, it's still quite common. Because it was minted in such large quantities, there's a lot of these coins in circulation. That means it's not rare or highly valuable unless it's in significantly better condition or has some unique attributive. For example, if your 1964 nickel is in fine or very fine condition, it could be worth more, closer to $1 or even slightly higher. Also, if your coin has any minting errors such as a doubled die, off-center strike, or anything unusual about the design, that could increase its value. In some rare cases, coins with these types of errors could be worth anywhere from $5 to $25 or more, depending on the rarity and demand. So, to sum it up, a 1964 Monticello Jefferson nickel without a mint mark in good condition is typically worth around 5 to 10 cents. However, if your coin is in better shape or has a rare feature, it could be worth more. If you're not sure about the condition of your coin or if it has a unique error, it might be worth getting it appraised or graded by a professional to get a more accurate value. Next up, the 1959 Monticello Jefferson nickel without a mint mark, specifically one in black color shade condition. If you've got one of these unique coins in your collection, stay tuned to find out its value in today's market. Let's start with a quick overview of the 1959 Jefferson nickel. This coin features Thomas Jefferson on the obverse, as well as his Virginia home, Monticello, on the reverse. The 1959 nickel is significant because it's one of the first coins struck after the minting of the 1950s series, and it marks a time when the Jefferson nickel design was already well established. This coin, minted in large numbers, doesn't feature a mint mark, which means it was struck at the Philadelphia Mint. While this coin isn't rare in itself, the condition and unique toning can play a role in its value. Now, let's talk about the black collar shade condition. This is a term that refers to coins that have developed a dark, almost black toning over time. The black appearance isn't the result of a minting error, but rather a natural process caused by factors like oxidation, exposure to moisture, or years of storage in poor conditions. As you can see, the black coloration doesn't necessarily mean the coin is damaged, it's just toned. However, it's important to note that the black shade doesn't usually add significant value unless there's something particularly unique about the toning. In most cases, a 1959 nickel in black color shade condition will be worth between 5 to 10 cents, which is close to its face value. Even though it's over 60 years old, coins with toning or discoloration don't tend to fetch high prices unless they are rare or in higher grades. While the black shade may make the coin stand out, it doesn't necessarily make it significantly more valuable unless it has a rare error or is in much better condition. If the black toning on your coin is unique, such as creating a rainbow effect or a striking, visually appealing pattern, some collectors may be interested in paying a premium for that. Some people collect coins with unusual or vibrant toning, and in these cases, your 1959 nickel could be worth more, possibly up to $5. Additionally, if your 1959 nickel has any rare minting errors, such as a doubled die, off-center strike, or some other anomaly, that could dramatically increase its value. Coins with errors can range anywhere from $10 to $50 or more, depending on the rarity of the mistake. So, in summary, a 1959 Monticello Jefferson nickel with no mint mark in black color shade condition is usually worth between 5 to 10 cents. However, if the toning is exceptional, or if your coin has a rare minting error, it could be worth much more, up to $5 or even higher. Before you clean it or assume the toning isn't valuable, remember that sometimes toning can actually enhance a coin's value if it's rare or visually interesting. Up the 1943 Abraham Lincoln steel penny, but with a twist. This one has the D mint mark and is in dirty condition. You may think its value is low because of its state, but trust me, it's worth more than you think. Let's find out just how much. Now, you might be familiar with the 1943 steel pennies. Those were made during World War II as part of the US government's efforts to conserve copper for ammunition. But did you know that a 1943 penny with a D mint mark, even in dirty condition, could be worth a lot more than face value? Stick around and I'll explain why. In 1943, due to wartime metal shortages, the US Treasury decided to produce pennies using steel instead of copper. The 1943 steel penny was minted in large numbers, with over 1 billion produced. These coins have a distinctive steel appearance, which is quite different from the usual copper pennies. Most of these pennies were mass-produced, but because they were made from steel, they're not as common today in great condition. Now, what makes the 1943 steel penny with a D mint mark interesting is that it was minted in Denver, and while many of these coins are still around, they are far from being considered worthless. Here's the key. Even if your coin is in dirty condition, like this one here, it doesn't necessarily mean its value is low. While a dirty penny won't fetch as much as a pristine one, the rarity of the 1943 steel penny still plays a big role in its market value. The 1943 penny with a D mint mark is still valuable in today's market, even with some dirt and wear. Generally, a 1943 steel penny in good or fine condition can be worth around $1 to $3, but don't be fooled, even a dirty one can be worth up to $5 or more, depending on its overall condition. Now, the condition matters a lot. If your coin is in circulated or worn condition, you're looking at a price of about $1 to $2. But a well-worn penny with a legible mint mark and clear features could be worth around $3 to $5. Dirty coins like this one tend to fall into that lower variety, or if it's in especially rare variety, it could fetch more. So what about the mint mark? The D mint mark, indicating it was struck in Denver, is significant. The 1943 pennies minted in Denver are not as rare as some other mint marks from that year, like the S mint mark from San Francisco, but they still stand out due to their historical importance and their place in American numismatic history. Even in dirty condition, a 1943 steel penny with a D mint mark can be worth more in the right market. Coin collectors and investors keep a close eye on these, and prices can vary depending on the coin's condition, rarity, and demand. At an auction or with a dealer, prices can also fluctuate. In general, expect to pay $1 to $5 for a common 1943 steel penny in average circulated condition. But if it's in better condition or has a special variety, it could go for $10 or even more. So, if you have a 1943 Lincoln steel penny with a D mint mark, even in a dirty condition, it's still worth taking a closer look at. It might not be a fortune just yet, but it's a great piece of history, and you never know, it might be worth more than you think. Next up, the 1946 Abraham Lincoln penny without a mint mark, and what it's worth today, even in extra damaged condition. So you've got a 1946 penny lying around, and it's seen better days, huh? Well, even if it's got some extra damage, it could still be worth more than just its face value. Let's take a closer look at why that's the case and how much this coin could be worth in today's market. First, a bit of history. The 1946 Abraham Lincoln penny was minted after World War II, a time when the U.S. economy was recovering from the war. The penny features the iconic image of President Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the familiar wheat ears on the reverse. This was a common design that lasted until 1958. Now, this penny doesn't have a mint mark, which means it was struck at the Philadelphia Mint. The lack of a mint mark is quite common for pennies from that time, but it's the condition of the coin that determines its value. Let's talk about how extra damage affects the coin's worth. Now, when we say extra damage, we're talking about coins that have been worn, scratched, dented, or even corroded over time. While this may make the coin look a little rough, it doesn't always mean it's worthless. Some collectors actually seek out damaged coins for the historical significance and character. Extra damage can happen for all sorts of reasons. It could have been dropped, exposed to the elements, or just been in circulation for many years. And while it's not in pristine condition, the 1946 penny still has value due to its age and the fact that it's part of American coinage history. So, how much is a 1946 penny worth today, even in extra damaged condition? Well, let's break it down. A 1946 penny without a mint mark in average circulated condition, meaning it's a bit worn but still readable, is typically worth around 3 to 5 cents. But with extra damage, we're looking at a slight drop in value. Even with the damage, a 1946 penny like this could still be worth around 10 to 15 cents, sometimes even a little more, depending on the severity of the damage. It's not a huge fortune, but it's definitely more than face value. Even though this 1946 penny has extra damage, it still holds some value for a couple of key reasons. First, the coin is made from copper, which can make it valuable to collectors interested in the metal itself. Second, it's a piece of history representing the post-war era and the early years of the Lincoln cent design. Coins like this may not be high-ticket items, but they are still part of a broader collection that can increase in value over time, especially if the damage is less severe than it looks, or if the coin has any special characteristics, like a rare die variety. Now, let's talk about the current market for these coins. Even in extra damage condition, 1946 pennies are still in demand from collectors who specialize in circulated coins or those looking for unique pieces with history. For example, a heavily damaged 1946 penny could still fetch a few dollars if it's part of a collection of well-worn coins. But don't expect it to break the bank unless it's in better condition or there's something unique about it. So if you've got a 1946 penny without a mint mark that's seen better days, don't toss it out just yet. Even in extra damage condition, it still has some value typically around 10 to 15 cents, maybe more, depending on its specific wear and tear. Next up, the 1955 Abraham Lincoln penny. This coin might be one you have in your collection, or maybe you found one while hunting through your spare change. But did you know that a 1955 penny in extra fine condition, without a mint mark, can be worth much more than face value? Stick around as we uncover its true worth in today's market. That's right, folks, this 1955 Lincoln penny, even without a mint mark, can be a real treasure if it's in extra fine condition. In this video, I'm going to break down exactly how much you can expect to get for it and why collectors are so interested in this particular coin. Let's get started. First, a little history. The 1955 Lincoln cent is part of the famous Wheat series, which ran from 1909 until 1958. The obverse of the coin features President Abraham Lincoln, and the reverse shows 2 ears of wheat, hence the name wheat penny. This design was a staple of U.S. currency for nearly 50 years. Now, the key thing about the 1955 penny is that it was minted at the Philadelphia Mint, which means it doesn't have a mint mark. This is important because while there are other Lincoln pennies with mint marks, the lack of one doesn't necessarily reduce its value, especially if the coin is in extra fine condition. Let's quickly talk about what extra fine means. In the world of numismatics, extra fine refers to a coin that shows minimal wear. It's a coin that's been in circulation, but still has most of its original details intact. For a 1955 penny, this means you will still clearly see Lincoln's features, the details of the wheat stalks on the reverse, and the text on the coin will be sharp and clear. So, an extra fine 1955 penny will have a bit of wear, but it will still have a lot of the original detail, unlike one that's heavily worn down, where the text and imagery might be difficult to make out. Now, let's get to the good stuff, the value. A 1955 penny in extra fine condition without a mint mark can actually be worth a lot more than you might think. In today's market, you can expect it to fetch anywhere from $1 to $3 on average, depending on its exact state and the demand from collectors. But here's the interesting part. Because the 1955 penny is part of a popular series and has a lot of demand among collectors, a coin in extra fine condition, especially if it's well scented and the details are crisp, can even go for $5 or more in some cases. So, factors affect the price of a 1955 penny in extra fine condition. There are a few things collectors and dealers look for. First, the overall condition. The sharper the details, the higher the value. If your penny has been well cared for, it could fetch a premium. Second, the eye appeal matters. If your penny has a nice patina or looks particularly attractive, collectors may be willing to pay more for it. Lastly, it's all about market demand. A well-circulated coin might not have the same value, but as interest in Lincoln cents grows, prices for well-preserved coins like this can increase. While the 1955 Lincoln penny isn't as rare as some other coins, it's still highly valued due to its role in American history. The coin was minted in the early 1950s, a period of post-war prosperity, and it remains a symbol of that era. Collectors often seek out these coins to complete their collections or to invest in them as a piece of American numismatic history. And while the 1955 penny doesn't have the same high-value price tag as some rare errors or key date coins, it's still an important part of the wheat cent series and can hold its own in terms of value. So, if you have a 1955 penny in extra fine condition, even without the mint mark, you've got yourself a valuable coin on your hands. It could be worth anywhere from $1 to $3, with some potentially reaching $5 or more if it's in excellent condition. Not bad for a penny that's over 60 years old. Next up, the 1944 wheat penny, but this isn't just any wheat penny. This one has no mint mark, is blackened, and comes with some damage. How much is it worth today? Let's find out. The 1944 wheat penny, often confused with the famous steel pennies from 1943, is part of a series that was minted from 1909 to 1958. The coin features the iconic wheat stalks on the reverse side and Abraham Lincoln's profile on the front. Now, the key factor we're looking at today is this specific coin, a 1944 wheat penny with no mint mark. This means it was minted in Philadelphia. But what really makes this one unique is its condition, damaged and heavily blackened. Normally, the value of a 1944 wheat penny would depend on its condition. A well-preserved one could be worth a few cents, but when you add damage and discoloration like this one, things change. Typically, the value of a 1944 wheat penny without a mint mark in decent condition is around 10 to 20 cents. However, when we are talking about a blackened, damaged coin like this, the value drops significantly. Coins in poor condition like this one, whether from being exposed to harsh elements, cleaned improperly, or simply worn down over time, typically sell for only a few cents, often less than $1. To be more precise, this particular 1944 wheat penny with no mint mark in blackened and damaged condition could be worth anywhere between 5 to 25 cents. The key here is that even in poor condition, these pennies hold some numismatic interest, especially for collectors of unusual or rare finds. But remember, condition is everything in the world of coin collecting. A coin in excellent shape could be worth much more, but once a coin is damaged or heavily worn, its value significantly decreases. If you happen to come across a 1944 wheat penny in better condition without any damage and with no mint mark, you might be looking at a value closer to $1 or more, depending on the market. So, while your blackened, damaged 1944 wheat penny may not make you rich, it's still a fascinating piece of American history. Keep an eye on your pennies, and who knows, you might find a rare gem hiding in plain sight. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more coin collecting content. See you next time. Happy collecting!